صاحبك بلا ما تكونوا انت زعما واحد فوق منه فوق من الاخر. داكشي سا مارش خاص كل واحد ما تكون انت صاحبتك ولا صاحبك بلا ما تكونوا انت زعما واحد فوق منه فوق من الاخر. داكشي سا مارش خاص كل واحد ما تكون انت صاحبتك ولا صاحبك بلا ما تكونوا
إلى الله نمضي يا هنيئا لمن سبق ويا حظ قلبه.
Приходит сказка, снег как чистый лист. На цветных красках упал лист. В лес приходит сказка, снег как чистый лист. На цветных красках упал лист. Сами начинают рисовать. Лес приходит сказка, снег как чистый лист. На цветных красках упал.
شو تاكل قداش ب 19 درهم اللهم بارك. شو تاكل السلام عليكم. في الفيديو
Whether you're new to running or you're
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أقدم لنا الثاني وأسي الكذب. إذا هنا في الجملة المدح الأساثة فعل، يعني الفاعل أي المواطن هنا بالمدح، أي مدحت المواطن الصالح ولم أمدح أي مواطن ثاني. نعمة وبئس فعلان جامدان لا يتصرفان، يعني لا مضارع لهما، يعني إذا زائد معهما من أسفل الفيديو. وشكرا بإتعاب للفول كانت إعراب كيف نعرب الجملة. نعمة فعل ماض جامد مبني على الفتح، الرجل فاعل مرفوع وعلامة رفعه الضمة الظاهرة على آخره، والجملة الفعلية نعم الرجل في محل رفع خبر مقدم. الصادق
السلام عليكم الاخوان والاخوات، مرحبا بكم عند بروف عبدو. كنتمنى تكونوا بصحه جيده. الا كنتم مهتمين بالاخبار ديال التعليم في المغرب اشتركوا معنا وفعلوا زر الجرس باش يوصلكم اي جديد. متابعينا الاوفياء ما تبخلوش علينا كذلك باللايكات حيت كيعاونوا الفيديو والقناه باش يزيدوا يطلعوا. استاذ وراه قلت لينا في الجروب فيسبوك وفي الباج فيسبوك باللي راه من الاثنين الى الخميس غيكونوا اضرابات وطنيه. واش بصح استاذ تم تمديد الاضراب الوطني؟ الاخوان الله يجازيكم بخير، راه تنقولها وتنعاود نقولها وقلتها شحال من مره. انا ما عندي حتى شي مجموعه في الفيسبوك، ما داير حتى شي جروب في الفيسبوك بسميت بروف عبدو. انا اصلا ما عندي حتى شي جروب. ثاني حاجه الاخوان، هذه ماشي صفحه رسميه ديالي، الله يجازيكم بخير. بقاو تردوا البال مزيان، كاين بزاف د الصفحات مزوره ماشي حقيقيه بسميتي بالصوره ديالي وتيحطوا اخبار كاذبه وتيحطوا اشاعات. الاخوان الصفحه الرسميه ديالي هي هذه كما كتشوفوا، فيها 433 ألف متابع. فاش تيكون شي قرار شي مذكره شي بلاغ ديال الوزاره تنحطوا لكم في هذه الصفحه الرسميه ديالي الوحيده. ما عندي حتى شي صفحه احتياطيه وما عندي حتى شي جروب فيسبوك. هادو ناس اللي داروا حسابات مزوره بسميتي وطيحطوا اشاعات كيبغيو يطلعوا التفاعل، يطلعوا الجروبات ديالهم، يطلعوا لي باج ديالهم على ظهري انايا. الاخوان الله يجازيكم بخير، تردوا البال تبقاوش تيكون اي حاجه. الاخوان انا سالا غتكليكي على السميه ديال الباج، شوف واش 433 الف متابع. ما هذيك الباج صغيره راه ماشي ديالي وما عنديش باج ثانيه، حيت كاين تيكذبوا عليكم تيقول لكم هذه راه الصفحه الثانيه ديالي. ما عنديش شي صفحه ثانيه. والاخوان خدات الدراسه كاينه بشكل عادي. الاضراب كان غير اليوم الاثنين، ماشي جميع الاساتذه قاموا بالاضراب، هناك اساتذه غير مضربين. فيعني اليوم هو اللي كان اضراب فقط. خدات الثلاثاء وهذا الشيء اللي بقى في هذا الاسبوع هذا غتكون الدراسه عاديه. والاسبوع المقبل عندكم العطله البينيه الرابعه والاخيره اللي غتكون من 28 ابريل حتى 5 ماي. ونقدروا نقول بانه هذا هو اخر نهار الاضراب في هذا العام الدراسي هذا. ما نظنش من بعد
If you are a runner that wants, what I'm going to do in this video is talk about these 3 avenues for improving your endurance and how to best take advantage of each one of them, because they're not made equal and some are much more productive than others. So let's talk about these 3 avenues of endurance. If you're a distance runner, you want to get faster, you're going to want to work on endurance through your metabolism, through your running economy, and through VO2 max. Let's first talk about metabolic endurance. Now, this is actually what most of us think about when we think about endurance. Your metabolic endurance is your body's ability to produce energy. It's your body's ability to clear exercise byproducts like lactate from your bloodstream and muscle cells as you're exercising. So if you've ever done a tempo run, for example, you are running a lactate threshold workout that is designed to help you remove that lactate from your bloodstream. Now, this is actually the most effective way at improving your endurance. So I wanted to start with it so that there's zero ambiguity here. If you want to become a better runner, you've got to improve what's going on inside your body, inside your cells. And the best way to improve your metabolic endurance is through your training itself. Things like relatively high mileage, things like your consistent long run that you do, hopefully every week, and things like aerobic workouts. Everything from progression runs to aerobic threshold or steady state runs, anything where you're running at marathon pace, half marathon pace, and of course your tempo or lactate threshold pace. These are what I'll call aerobic paces. They work incredibly well at building the aerobic metabolism. And if we think back to what legendary cross-country coach Mark Wetmore, who coaches the University of Colorado Boulder cross-country team, says, he says we don't have any secrets to our training. We are always patiently building the aerobic metabolism. And that's why his teams are so great. Now, you can also build this metabolic endurance through cross-training, which is why I really love when runners incorporate pool running, cycling, or the elliptical into their program, because a lot of us can't run high mileage. Not all of us can run 80, 90, 100 miles a week. I know I sure broke whenever I tried to go over 90 miles a week. And so I used a lot of pool running and cycling when I was training at my peak to help me keep up with the other much more talented guys that I was racing against on my cross-country team. And you know what? It really did help. I remember the summer before my senior year in college, I was running about 80 miles a week, but I was doing 2 to 4 hours of cross training on top of that. And I had some friends being like, holy cow, Jason's running the equivalent of like 100 miles a week. I better get my training in order so that he doesn't beat me. And I had one of the best seasons I've ever had after using aerobic cross training to supplement my running. So you don't necessarily have to build endurance through only running. You can supplement with cross training. But of course, running is the most effective way at doing this because after all, we are runners. So the law of specificity certainly applies here. So if you are someone who is running low mileage, you're not doing a consistent long run, you're not doing aerobic workouts at marathon pace, half marathon pace, tempo pace, and anywhere in between, then this is one of the best, most effective ways at producing more endurance for you. So get on the higher mileage plan if you can. Try to supplement with cross training. Be very consistent with your long run, and you are doing so much to metabolically prime your body for endurance. And the end result is you're going to be a lot faster. The next leg of this three-legged stool of endurance we're talking about is your running economy. Now, your running economy is simply how much energy it takes you to run at a given speed. And those runners who are more efficient, who can run at a faster pace without using more energy, are going to have more endurance. Now, running economy isn't just metabolic. It's not what's going on inside your body. It's very much mechanical. It's how your body is moving. And it's also very much neuromuscular. This is really a coordination issue. And that's why we can use training methods outside of just running to improve our running economy. So, for example, one of the best ways to improve your running economy is to simply practice it a lot. which in running means run high mileage. So run more and more so that you are practicing the very thing that you want to get better at. But we don't necessarily have to just run a lot, because coordination and more efficient running economy is kind of based on how well you move. Moving in a variety of ways is super helpful. So not only is running a lot at a relatively easy pace very helpful, but also running a very little amount but at a very hard effort is also really important. So I love to see runners doing regular strides 2 to 3 days a week. I love to see runners doing hill sprints, or in other words, running very, very fast on the regular. This is an act of coordination. You are improving that neuromuscular communication pathway between your brain and your legs, and that is going to help you improve your running economy so that you can run the same pace but use a lot less energy. And that's going to leave you in a position where you can get more out of your body and end up running faster. There's also a lot of other things we can do besides running a lot and sprinting to improve our running economy. Some of the best things to do are lift heavy weights. That's going to improve those communication pathways, as well as form cues that are really helpful at reinforcing some of these really efficient movement patterns, as well as form drills. So if you were to incorporate maybe 3 or 4 drills before your faster workouts, this is a wonderful way of practicing some of these areas of coordination and really helping you kind of build them into your library of movement skills that you have. That's going to carry over really well to your running so that you can run faster, have great economy, and you'll actually feel good doing it. If you lift heavy weights, sprint regularly, run a lot, and you're doing form drills, you are going to feel very, very good when you're running. You're going to feel efficient. You're going to feel smooth. You're going to have a nice flow to your stride. And it's that effortless stride that is a stride that has a very high running economy. Now we're on to the last leg of this 3-legged stool of endurance, and it's not something that we should get too excited about. This is VO2 max. VO2 max is probably the thing that you're most aware of from all of these different metrics of endurance, because we've been taught that VO2 max is one of the best indicators of performance, right? You want a high VO2 max. Well, first of all, VO2 max is simply the amount of oxygen, the volume of oxygen, the maximum volume of oxygen that your body can process. And it's not actually something you can really train. So studies have shown that VO2 max is largely untrainable. Sometimes it's really low in very highly trained athletes, and it can be very high in people who aren't training very hard. And the other thing is that it's the least correlated with performance of any of these metrics that we've discussed today. So I want to encourage all of you, don't worry about VO2 max. It's not something that we should be actively trying to improve, because it's pretty much genetic. Unless you chose great parents with very high VO2 maxes, then you're probably not going to be able to really budge your VO2 max too much. Yes, it's probably going to go up when you're running very high mileage. It's probably going to go up a little bit when you're doing hard workouts, at 3K pace, 5K pace. Those very challenging workouts are excellent at training the VO2 max system. But that doesn't mean you're really going to improve it in any measurable, substantial way. So I would much rather athletes focus on training for performance rather than on training for VO2 max. At the end of the day, runners, endurance is fairly simple. It's producing energy over the long term in an efficient way. If you're running a lot, if you're lifting heavy weights, if you're sprinting regularly, you're going to be building that aerobic metabolism. You're going to be improving your running economy so that you can ultimately race a lot faster. It's not rocket science, but it's also something that is a little bit counterintuitive sometimes, because high mileage helps with both your metabolic endurance and with your running economy. And while VO2 max is surely an important part of endurance, it's not really something that you can train. It's pretty much genetic, and it's not really worth our time to focus on it too much. So if you're a new runner, I hope this is giving you some ideas on what to focus on. Focus on consistency. Focus on gradually building your mileage over the long term. Focus on lifting weights, doing form drills. If you're working with a coach, this would be a wonderful time to ask them about any form cues that might help with your unique personal form issues that you might have. So a coach will be able to look at you run and say, you know what, I think these 2 to 3 cues would be great for you. And if you are working on these very high level, big picture issues over the long term, you're going to be building endurance, and your progress might seem relatively slow and gradual from week to week, but quarter to quarter, you are going to be making substantial gains in fitness, and you're going to be capable of racing quite fast. I'm not that big into supplements, but I do love AG1 by Athletic Greens. I consider it my nutrition insurance, helping me cover all my bases, so I know I'm not missing out on anything my body needs, especially when I'm training really hard. I try to eat really well, but of course, AG1 is that extra security that gives me peace of mind over my diet. 1 scoop per day, and I'm getting 75 vitamins and minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, antioxidants, and adaptogens. You can try it out too at athleticgreens.com/Jason, and they're going to throw in a free year's worth supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Check it out at athleticgreens.com/Jason. Is that mileage does tend to fix a lot of our problems. If we can run high mileage, we are going to be less susceptible to injuries because we're actually stronger, both in our muscles, our connective tissues, but also we're aerobically stronger. We're capable of faster workouts. We're probably going to be faster runners. And if I knew nothing about several different runners, but I knew how much mileage they were running over the course of the week, I would have a really good indication of who the faster runners were. So in this video, what I want to do is give you 3 tangible, easy ways to run more mileage. So if you're the type of runner who's typically running 15, 20, maybe 30 miles per week, you're in good company. A lot of runners are running mileage levels around 20 to 30 miles per week. But I know that if you are able to increase those miles gradually and safely over time, you will become a much better runner. So let's get started. Let's talk about 3 easy ways to gradually allow yourself to run higher and higher volume so that you can get a lot faster. All right, our first concept is called baseline mileage. You have to know your baseline mileage because that really predicts how quickly you can increase your mileage from week to week. So let's just say you're a runner whose baseline mileage is about 20 to 25 miles per week. Now, baseline mileage is simply the amount of miles that you are very comfortable running per week. So if it's about 20 to 25, that means that that's a great mileage level for you. You're feeling good at that mileage level. Anything less, and it kind of feels like you're tapering, or it feels like you're in a recovery week, or you're just not running as much as you normally do. But if you run much more than 25 miles per week, that's when you're starting to become more fatigued. You're starting to experience a little bit more soreness. Your injury risk increases. So that baseline mileage is your sweet spot, and it's different for every single runner out there. Some runners are comfortable running 20 miles a week. Some runners are comfortable running 40 or even 60 miles a week. Look back on your training logs and see where you're comfortable. Where are you feeling like your running is very easy? What mileage levels make you sore and tired and fatigued? And then where is that sweet spot? Step 1 is knowing your baseline mileage, because that indicates when you can be much more aggressive than the old 10% rule and when you have to be more conservative. So let's go back to our hypothetical runner. They're comfortable running 20 to 25 miles a week. This is their baseline. So if they're just coming back from some time off, they can increase their mileage much more quickly, up to 20 to 25 miles per week, than that old 10% rule, which says you shouldn't increase your mileage by more than 10% from week to week. So you can increase much more aggressively up until your baseline, but then once you get beyond it, let's be more conservative. Let's ignore that 10% rule and instead increase our mileage much more gradually than that. Because after all, beyond 25 miles, this runner is a little bit more uncomfortable. They're a little bit more sore, and this volume of running is more challenging to them. So know your baseline, be more aggressive leading up to it, but more conservative when you're increasing your mileage beyond that baseline level. Now, the second concept is to not actually increase your mileage every week. And that's one of the things that we learn from that 10% rule, which has become very popular over the last 10 or 15 years. We all think, well, if I'm increasing my mileage by 10% per week, then I'm being safe, right? Well, that 10% can amount to a lot of mileage if your weekly mileage is fairly high. And the rule indicates that you can increase your volume every single week. but it does take the body more time than just 7 days to adapt to this new workload that you've just put it under. You're experiencing more miles. Your body is struggling to recover from those miles, to adapt to those miles, and to adjust to this higher volume that you have just experienced. So let's increase our mileage about every 2 weeks. This gives you much more time to adapt to the higher volume, and it really does reduce your injury risk so that those higher mileage levels not only become manageable and doable, but they start to feel comfortable. So your old baseline mileage will start getting higher and higher and higher as you gradually increase that mileage over time. But it all starts with very gradual increases, and let's only do that every 2 weeks. Now, if we know our baseline mileage and we're being aggressive going up to it, but then more conservative once we're beyond our baseline mileage, if we're only increasing our mileage every 2 weeks, the next step is to once in a while take a recovery week where your mileage actually decreases. This is like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach where, yes, we are going to be gradually, strategically, and methodically running more and more and more. But sometimes we have to take a step back and rest. And that's what a recovery week is. So every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how tired you feel, take a week where your overall mileage level is reduced by about 10 to 25%. This is going to allow you 2 very important things. Number 1, to give you some physical recovery. You are going to be running less. Hopefully your workouts are a little bit easier too, in the spirit of a recovery week. And then you can actually adapt to all that hard work you've been doing. Without that recovery week, you are pushing forward almost every week. You're always in the process of building. That can be very physically fatiguing. And point number 2, it can also be very mentally fatiguing to always be on, to always be striving forward, to be doing more, to be running longer. And we don't want you to burn out. Part of the whole burnout process isn't just the physical part of it, it's the mental burnout. It's you just not being enthusiastic about your training. And a recovery week can give you a mental break from training so hard so that when you finally start the next week and you're actually ready to run higher mileage, you're mentally ready for it, and you probably are starting to crave running a little bit more. So don't ignore the mental side of things. And those recovery weeks really help you with both the physical recovery and the mental recovery of just training so hard. Okay, strategy number 4. I know I said 3, but this is a bonus one. I'm on a roll here. Once you've done all those things, the other thing to keep in mind is that even though we've been talking about weekly mileage this entire time, weekly mileage can be somewhat of a short-term, short-sighted thing to focus on. Instead of always focusing on how many miles you're running in a 7-day period, let's instead think about your monthly mileage total. This is a longer-term way of thinking about your training, and it's in that mindset shift that this really helps you. Because a lot of the times, when we get so caught up in weekly mileage, we try to hit that number that we want to in our training log, but a lot of that is very forced. We have to run a certain amount just over a couple days, and that really does increase our injury risk. So instead of thinking about a 7-day window, instead let's think about an entire month. Running is a long-term sport. It takes months and years to even glimpse your potential. So it does make sense to have a more longer-term outlook on your training volume and on your progress. I started tracking monthly mileage for myself when I was just out of college, and I found it was a much better way of allowing myself to run more because I was focusing more on a longer time horizon. And so it allowed me to sometimes run a little bit less and have my weekly mileage be lower, but I was thinking bigger. I was thinking longer term, and it really is an effective strategy for helping yourself run more without it actually feeling too difficult. So there we have it. Those are four different ways of allowing you to run higher mileage by making it a little bit easier. Knowing your baseline mileage is where it all starts. Let's not increase our mileage every single week. Let's do every 2 weeks. Let's use recovery weeks. And then let's shift our thinking to not actually worrying about weekly mileage as much as we do monthly mileage. This is a great approach to running higher volume. It's a safer approach. You're going to experience fewer injuries. And a year from now, you are going to be capable of running a weekly mileage total that this year you are just wondering if it's even possible. I'm sure it is possible. It just takes that longer term approach. It requires a little bit of strategy and some conscious thought. I know you can do it, so I'll put together a bunch of resources for you. I have articles linked under this video that talk more about that baseline mileage concept. I've linked videos talking about different mileage levels and also how to structure your training at different mileage levels. So if you're running 30 miles a week, 50 miles a week, or even 80 miles a week, you'll know a really effective way to structure that mileage over the course of the week. You know, taking into consideration the fact that you need to recover. You need to do a long run. You need to, if you're running high mileage, you may even need to run twice per day. So those resources I think are going to be really helpful for you. And if you are planning out your mileage levels, say for perhaps an upcoming season, you've targeted a goal race, a time trial, a virtual race, or some other event that's interesting you right now, download our season planner worksheet. It's really helpful in that it tells you what kind of tune-up races are ideal for whatever goal race that you're targeting. And it also sets up, gives you guidance on the number of weeks to have for your total season and also when to put those tune-up races and more. So I hope you find all these resources helpful. And if you are getting value from these YouTube videos, I'm doing a lot more recently, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, share it with some of your running friends, your running team that you think would benefit from some of this guidance. Thanks, guys. Is talk about a better way of increasing your mileage so that you always know whether or not you're increasing by too much or by too little. Probably the most popular strategy for increasing your weekly mileage is what's known as the 10% rule. It's a rule that's meant to prevent injuries, and it says that runners shouldn't increase their weekly mileage by more than 10% per week. Now, I think the 10% rule is incomplete at best, because if we think about it, the 10% rule really breaks down at very low mileage levels and at really high mileage levels. So back when I was running 80 to 90 miles a week, there's no way I could adhere to the 10% rule because I would just be adding way too much mileage from week to week. And at very low mileage levels, like let's say you're just getting back into running and you're running, say, 10 or 15 miles per week. You can see how adding 1 or 1.5 miles on a weekly basis is so conservative that it's not even really necessary. We can do a little bit better and increase our mileage more strategically as opposed to blindly following the 10% rule. I think the 10% rule works great when you're in the 30, 40, maybe 50 mile a week range, but like I said, it's incomplete. What the 10% rule misses, in addition to simply breaking down at those low and high mileage levels, is how you're feeling and what kind of mileage levels you're personally used to. So if you're someone who hits peak mileage levels of maybe 50 or 60 miles a week in peak training, you can increase a lot more quickly at certain stages of that mileage building process. So let's talk about a more strategic way of building mileage than simply adding 10% every week. A more comprehensive strategy for building your mileage is to know what I call your baseline mileage. This is a level of weekly mileage that you're very comfortable doing. And so this is something that is going to be different for every runner. And I really can't give you specific mileage levels to shoot for, Some runners might be very comfortable running 20 miles a week. Some runners might be very comfortable running 40 miles a week. I know that when I was training competitively, I was fairly comfortable running 60 to 70 miles per week because I had been doing it for years. But when I started getting up to 75, 80 miles a week, and certainly 85 miles a week, I was very fatigued and it made me quite sore. And so I knew that when I was at those higher mileage levels, I needed to be more careful. And on the flip side of that coin, when I was at lower mileage levels, 30, 40, 50 miles per week, I could be a little bit more aggressive. So for this strategy to work, you must know your baseline mileage. And one of the best ways of understanding your baseline mileage is to look at your training log, to look at weeks and months and maybe even years of training and try to figure out where you feel comfortable. Is it 20 miles a week? Is it 30 miles a week? Is it 40 miles a week? And once you know your baseline mileage, then you can really start this process in earnest. And what you want to do is make sure that whenever you're increasing your mileage, when you're under your baseline mileage, you can be more aggressive than the 10% rule. So let's just say you're comfortable running about 30, 35 miles a week, and you've just run a half marathon or a marathon, you took a week off, and your first week back, you start running, say, 15 miles a week. Very easy, you're just seeing how your body feels. The next week, you can add more than 10%. You are used to these mileage levels. They are more than comfortable. And once you're fully recovered from that race, you can begin to add more mileage a little bit more aggressively than 10%. So your first week back might be 15 miles per week. Your second week back might be 20 or 22. And then from there, you can get back to your 30 to 35 mile a week average or baseline very quickly, within a couple weeks. And if you look at the percentages of those couple weeks of mileage increases, they will far exceed 10% per week. But it's okay because it's mileage levels that are very comfortable for you. Now, if you can be more aggressive when you're building mileage up to your baseline mileage, you can be a lot less aggressive. And in fact, I would recommend being very conservative when you are increasing mileage beyond your baseline mileage. Because when you're running mileage beyond that baseline, beyond the point at which you are comfortable, well, by definition, you're uncomfortable. You are a little bit more fatigued. Maybe the mileage level is causing you to be sore. Maybe you're running an extra day per week than you're used to. This extra stress demands more time for your body to recover and time for your body to adapt to this new stress. And so what I like to see runners do is maybe increase your mileage by 10% every 2 weeks instead of every week. And then once you start getting very much beyond your baseline mileage, I like to see runners be even more conservative. Let's not increase your mileage too quickly. And in fact, there's a lot of value in simply staying at a given mileage level. If it's stressful for you, then those weeks of extra stress compound over time. And you really get a lot of benefit from running a slightly uncomfortable number of miles per week over and over and over again. So if we're taking this 30 to 35 mile per week hypothetical runner, maybe they get up to 40 miles per week, but they stay there for 2 weeks. And then maybe their next week is 43. And they stay there for a week, but then they go up to 45. These increases are relatively small from a percentage perspective. But if you can do this gradually, every couple weeks, only adding a few miles, you'll actually be surprised at how many miles you will then be capable of running because you're adding them very slowly over time. You're giving your body that time to adjust to that new stress, and you're going to become a lot stronger too. Now, if you are currently in the mileage building process, let's remember that especially when you are over your baseline mileage, all of those mileage increases should be done at a very easy effort. You are prioritizing volume. You are not prioritizing pace. So sometimes the extra mileage that you're running, maybe that extra day of running you add to your schedule, sometimes that is just done at a recovery effort. And you might be wondering, well, am I getting any value from this? Am I getting any benefit from not really doing this at a pace that is challenging to me, a pace that feels like I'm working hard, but there absolutely is. And I definitely think you should first just complete the mileage at a very, very easy effort. And then over time, as your body adjusts to it, you can then settle into your normal, easy running pace. You can increase the effort of these runs, and you can start building workouts into these runs. But first, keep it really easy so that you're getting the volume in, but in the least stressful way possible. It's also a good idea not to do very difficult workouts when you are running mileage that's far beyond your baseline mileage. You can get there over time, but first, I love to see runners just get there without any workouts. You could do strides a couple times a week. You can certainly do maybe an easy tempo run or some half marathon or marathon pace work. Even a short fartlek workout would work really great. But when you are in that sort of danger zone of running very high mileage, I know for me that was 85 to 90 miles a week. Whenever I hit 90 miles a week or my weekly mileage PR of 91, I got injured. The next week, I always had some niggle come up. So when you are in that zone, try to avoid the really grueling workouts. They're going to make your training a lot more stressful. They're going to up the workload of that training week, and it's going to make adding extra mileage that much more difficult. So as you are planning your training out for 2022, hoping to set perhaps some training PRs of maybe your highest weekly mileage yet, I hope this video was helpful. The next question then becomes, well, how do I structure my mileage in these weeks, whether you're running 40 miles a week or more, or maybe even less? I want you to check out our planning weekly mileage training video that I'm going to link underneath this video. It goes into detail on how you actually would set up the mileage over the course of a week, so that once you get into those higher mileage levels that maybe you don't have any experience with yet, now you know how to structure it, and that is going to make all the difference. Every runner should be focusing on a long run training while at the same time prioritizing injury prevention and staying as healthy as possible. All right, let's get started. All right, now you've been given a sneak peek at our first week of training here. This is a 40 miles per week training schedule, and let's talk about the principles here. Why does this week look the way that it does? And these principles are going to remain about the same for every level of mileage. So we're going to start with 40, because 40 is when things start to get a little bit more complex. And then these same principles are going to hold with us all the way up to a 100-mile training week. So let's look at a 40-mile training week here. So you'll see that we have 5 days of running and a long run on Saturday, and then a medium long run on Wednesday. Now, just in terms of definitions, a long run is your longest run of the week. It doesn't need to be double digits. It just needs to be the longest run of the week. And your medium long run is quite simply the second longest run of the week. Now, why does this week look the way that it does? First and foremost, we always want a long run. That's a fundamental principle of distance running. I think every runner should be focusing on a long run. It's the biggest bang for your training buck. That's going to make you the faster runner that I think you know you are. Now, the other thing here is that the number of days that we have during this week are split up into roughly even numbers. So we have a 2-day block here, and then you'll get a day off. And then you have a 3-day block here, and then you'll get a day off. Now, what this does is make sure that the overall effort or workload of your training week is split up fairly evenly. It would be, just asking for an injury if we were to put, your faster running workout on Thursday, maybe your medium long run there, and then your long run on Friday. I mean, that's really condensing all of the work into a very short time period. So we don't want to do that. We want to spread those 2 days as far apart as we can. You'll see that there's 2 days in between the medium long run and the long run. And then there's 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, in between the long run and the faster workout. And so this optimizes recovery, and it's going to optimize your performance when it comes to those days. All right, let's see what a 60-mile week looks like. Okay, now we're looking at a 60-mile training week. We're starting to get into the big boy and big girl mileages here. So you'll see that now we've transitioned to 6 days of running. We only have 1 day off on Friday. Same principles here. We have a long run, a medium long run. Now you might be asking, why is the day after the long run a fairly substantial number of miles? And that's because I think there's a lot of benefit to running a decent run after your long run, because there's two things going on after a long run. Number one, you're going to be tired. Your muscles are going to be fatigued. And number two, you might be underfueled. You might be in a slightly carb depleted state. And so running a decent amount the day after a long run is going to help you get faster, because while you're fatigued, your slow twitch muscle fibers are very tired. Some of your fast twitch muscle fibers are going to help you out. They're going to take over from when your slow twitch fibers are because they're tired, and that's going to help boost your speed. And if you're in a slightly carb depleted state, running up to running about 9 miles or so, that's really going to help you become more efficient at burning fuel. So there's a lot of benefits to doing a decent run after a long run, and that's why I like scheduling that here. Now, in terms of workouts, you'll notice that we're just sticking to mileage here, and that's because I want to keep this fairly simple. But if we were to do a workout this week, it would probably be on Wednesday. That's because I like to maintain the principle of let's make your easy days easy, but let's make your hard days hard. So by putting the workout on Wednesday, you're putting it on the second longest run of the week. Now, we could do a couple funny things here. We could play around with the mileage here on these few days and put the workout on Tuesday. That would work as well. That would be totally feasible. Now, since we're at 60 miles a week, this is a fairly advanced level of mileage, and a runner running this amount of miles might be doing 2 workouts. And if they were, a good schedule would be Monday, Wednesday. And then this would be easy. You take a day off, and then you would start your long run on Saturday. But this is how a 60-mile week would look like. We're really making sure that we're spreading out the work over the week, and we're giving the runner enough rest, but also enough stimulus so that they can get faster. All right, let's keep the mileage levels going up. Let's look at a 70-mile week. Now we're looking at a 70-mile week. This is starting to get intense. Couple differences here. First thing you'll notice is that there are no days off. Once you start running really high mileage, there simply isn't enough time to get in all that mileage and take a day off. But you'll notice that we still have a very easy day on Friday. The other thing that you'll notice is that we have a double session here. Now, I do have an article on strength running that outlines when you should do doubles, the benefits of doubles, how you can use doubles for both, priming yourself for faster workouts and for using them as easy recovery runs, even when it's the second run of the day. So Google double sessions on strength running. There is a search option there, and you'll get a lot more detail on that. But the premise here is that by using a double session, you can basically siphon off a little bit of mileage on your other easy days so that you're making them even easier. You don't necessarily have to do double sessions with a 70-mile week. You can do 70 miles per week in singles, so just 1 run per day. But if I were to do that, I might do something like, here, I'll do it right now. I might take all of these runs and make them a little bit longer. So we might do something like 10, 8, and 12. Let's keep that 8. Let's do 5 here. I'm sorry, 8, 5, 18, and 9. My math is right, 50-50 on that. That is 70 miles per week. And this is an example of how to do 70 miles per week in singles. Now, why would you want to do singles versus doubles? Doubles does make it a little easier to get in the mileage. I think it's a little bit counterintuitive that running twice a day makes your training easier, but it does make it a little easier. You're getting more recovery in between your mileage. You get to reduce some of the distances on your other days, but doing it in singles gives you a bigger aerobic stimulus. So there's pros and cons to doing it both ways. I think a lot of coaches, have success doing it both ways. So there's definitely not a right or wrong way to do things. It really depends on the purpose of this particular week, the runner, where you are in your training cycle, so many different variables. But this is a really nice way of breaking up a 70-mile training week. Now we're looking at an 80-mile training week. You'll see that we're really not messing around now. We have 2 double sessions. We have multiple double-digit runs, a 12-mile medium long run, 17-mile long run here on Saturday. I like this schedule. You want to know why I like this schedule? This reminds me of about 5 years of my life when I was running about 80 miles, and this is generally the structure that I followed. Now, this has roots in, many college programs, because you're looking at a Monday workout, a Wednesday workout. These would actually be flipped. So you would have a race on Saturday, which would be relatively low mileage, maybe 8 to 10 miles, and then a 15 to 18 mile long run on Sunday. So generally speaking, this is similar to the schedule that I ran in college. Now, a note about double sessions. If we are doing workouts on Monday and Wednesday, they're going to be during that second afternoon run of 10 miles. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would you run in the morning and then go do a workout in the afternoon? Won't you be tired? Won't you feel worse? Won't you run slower? And the answer is no, provided that you're ready for this amount of work. So as long as you're ready for 80 miles, as long as you're ready to put in a 15-mile training day within an 80-mile week, then this won't be a problem. And actually, that short run in the morning is going to prime you for that afternoon workout. You're going to be more warmed up. You're going to have a better hormonal profile for running hard, and you're just going to feel better. You're going to get more results out of this kind of a schedule. Now, that doesn't mean to say you have to do it this way. You could switch these and do your workout in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you do a short, easy run. There's a lot of different ways to train. You could easily flip these and get very similar training results from it, but this is one really nice way to do it. Okay, let's look at a 90-mile week, and then we're going to look at a 100-mile week before I do a couple quick questions and then a few principles that you can use to structure your own mileage. Have you ever wondered how people run 90 miles a week? This is one way to do it. We're maintaining our 2 double sessions of the week. We're maintaining our long run. We still have a very strong medium long run in here. And I hope by this point you can see that mileage scales. It doesn't matter if you're running 90 miles a week or if you're running 40 miles a week, less than half that distance. Many of the principles remain exactly the same. And that's one of the reasons why I love running. You can take someone who's running 30 miles a week, 60 miles a week, 100 miles a week, and you can give them very similar training because it adheres to the same principles, the same fundamentals that make everyone a faster, better runner. Doesn't matter if you're running 30 minutes for 5K or 15 minutes for 5K. That's what I love about running. Now, this week is not too much different than the 80-mile week we just looked at. Very similar. Things are going to change a little bit more dramatically when we get to 100 miles a week. So let's take a look. And here we have it, the 100-mile training week, the training week that always eluded me, never got up that high. I'm tired just looking at it, but what do we see here? So first things first, we'll see that we're now running double sessions 3 times. So we are running twice, 3 times in 1 week, which is fatiguing. It feels like you're constantly either getting ready for a run, running, or recovering from a run, but it's necessary to get in 100 miles in 1 week. Now, one of the sneaky things that you'll notice about a 100-mile week with 3 double sessions and a 90-mile week with 2 double sessions is that a lot of these runs are actually the same or shorter than the 90-mile week. So our Sunday run is a mile less. Now our long run's longer, but on Thursday we have a double. On Tuesday, our medium long run is shorter. And really what we're doing is we're just lengthening some of the short morning runs. So from short to just not as short, but they're still relatively short for someone doing this level of mileage. And the reason there is that in this kind of a mileage structure, you're running 100 miles a week. It's a lot of volume. It's a very high workload. And so by splitting it up as much as we can here, what we're doing is we're really making it easier to do. You know, running 100 miles a week, for example, in singles, very challenging. I don't know a lot of people who do that. But splitting it up into many runs throughout the week, so in this case, 10 runs, meaning you're really only averaging 10 miles per run. So it's a lot more doable, but again, only if you are ready for it. If you're not ready for an 18-mile day, even if it's split up, then you're not ready for it, period. So I would encourage you, don't jump into this. This is simply an example to give you an idea of what a very high mileage week looks like. So then what you can do is you can take a look at this week. You can take a look at a 40-mile week, which might be a much more appropriate goal for you. And then you can see how the
Thank you.